Welcome back. Governor Scott Walker defeated the recall attempt in Wisconsin, where Democrats outnumbered and outgunned. We're talking about that and more with Congresswoman Karen Bass of California, Dr. Chris Metzler, political scientist at Georgetown University, looking mighty golden this week. Obama 2012 pollster, Cornell Belcher with the Undertaker look. And of course, political commentator Lenny McAllister. This is his first time on the panel. And Lenny, whenever you come on the show, we do pocket squares on the show. Just letting you know. So for future reference, flag lapel pin, that's cute, but pocket squares work. All right, let's get right to it. Democrats, lots of whining this week after what took place in Wisconsin. They were saying, oh, we got outspent, we got outgunned. To me, that's what happens in politics. Guess what? You raise a lot of money or you don't, and this is what happens. To me, it sounds like it's sour grapes. You deal with it. You lost.
Well, wow, that's a lot. But here's the thing. At some point, you question whether or not the recall should have taken place. You had, the vast majority of voters in Wisconsin didn't agree with the recall even taking place.
So you think a lot of folks who voted were mad with the recall itself, as opposed to it really being,
that was clear from,
I don't like him, I don't like,
that was clear from the polling, and you talk to voters, and the thing was, if I want to fire Scott Walker, I can do that in 2 years. What's this recall thing about? So, but it was good for Republicans in this way. They got an early run on how they're going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars, and sort of try to completely take out their opponents through all this money and all this negative advertising. And unfortunately, as a political professional, I know negative advertising works. And when you outspend your opponent 8 to 1, it's going to have an impact.
But here's the thing. It also goes back to people were running against Scott Walker. And what are you going to have in 2012? People running against President Obama. It's not going to be the same dynamic for Republicans, and that's something that conservatives have to make sure that we don't get locked into. If we think it's going to be the same formula from Wisconsin and that's going to be a template for the rest of the nation, it's not going to be, because you don't usually vote out a president because you're that angry. The same way you couldn't vote out this governor because people were quote-unquote so angry.
Congresswoman Bass, a lot of Democrats are complaining, saying that we need to get money out of the politics. Many of them, Russ Feingold, former senator from Wisconsin, he says, look, forget the whole super PAC money. Look, I get idealistic. I get what a stance in terms of being about purity. But here's the reality. It's legal. It's the law. So Democrats are going to have a choice. Either you're going to raise the money like the Republicans, or you're going to get outgunned and you're going to be complaining after the fact when you lose.
Well, I think, first of all, we're going to raise the money. We have to. I mean, I don't want to see the super PACs there. I hope that we're able to pass legislation that at least forces the people who are funding it to disclose. But on the other hand, until then, we have to raise the money. I think a couple of things about Wisconsin also. Number one, we can't neglect the fact that it looks like we're going to win the Senate. And I think that was very important in terms of the Wisconsin election. I know that there's one that they're still deciding. But maybe the voters in Wisconsin decided they didn't want to go to the way of California. I mean, look how it worked out for us.
In terms of the recall of Governor Gray Davis.
Exactly.
Arnold Schwarzenegger came in and became governor.
Right, because I think that the folks in Wisconsin, as I understand the exit polls, were saying that he didn't commit a crime, so why are we recalling him? Now, needless to say, I wish the recall would have succeeded, but I think as long as the super PACs are out there, the Democrats have to match the money dollar per dollar.
I'm glad you brought up super PACs. Chris, I saw Democrats saying that, oh, this was a good night for President Obama, because according to the exit polls, according to the exit polls, it showed 53 to 42, the folks who voted will be supporting President Obama. But the same exit polls that night said it was going to be 50-50. If I'm a Democrat, I'm throwing the exit polls out and I'm saying, look, act like we're the underdog, that we need to fight, and not be complacent and somehow think that, oh, we got an 11-point difference, it's going to be okay in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think this whole idea of looking at Wisconsin as having these far-reaching impacts in the fall, I just think is folly. I mean, by the time we get to the fall, I think you're going to see a completely different campaign. And as Lenny said, this is a completely different campaign, particularly for conservatives. So we can't sit there and say, oh, okay, so now we know what the formula is. No, we don't know what the formula is. And I think, in fact, it's going to be an extremely different campaign. And frankly, I think by November, folks would have forgotten about this whole recall thing anyway.
Cornell, the other wake-up call for Democrats is that you can't rest on your laurels and understand this is going to be a tight election.
Well, yeah, I think so the Obama campaign and been saying it's going to be a tight election. I mean, Axelrod even said it's going to be, Titanic.
But here's the deal. I'll tell you, when I talk about this on Facebook and Twitter and other forums, listen to talk radio, I'm hearing Democrats say, oh, no, we're going going away in November. And I'm going, hey, y'all going to realize what's happening in the country.
Actually, this is probably, and it came from the Republican primary. If you look at sort of qualitative research that was going around during the Republican primary, a lot of voters were scratching their heads going, looking at this cast from Sugar Daddy Herman Cain on through, looking at his cast and going, there's no way any of these cats can really be serious about being president. And I think they sort of went to sleep. I think we have, as Democrats, our job is to wake up these voters and say, look, no, this is the same country that elected George Bush, at least one time. Exactly. So we cannot go to sleep on this and think that this race is over.
On Friday, President Barack Obama held a news conference trying to change the story. Did not have a good week when it came to the economy. Last week's job numbers. Also, President Bill Clinton didn't help either. And so another week of a surrogate not really staying on message. In this case here, the president has to speak to the issue of what's happening in Europe because we are now seeing a drop there. If Europe gets worse, that's going to have a negative impact on this economy, which also could impact his reelection. Lenny.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, which is part of the reason why you're seeing some of these other fringe issues come into play, why gay marriage is coming into play, why some of the other things that we've been talking about that have been outside of the economy has come into play. Now, Governor Romney can't wade down those waters. And some of the other conservatives, that's what sunk, for example, Rick Santorum just a couple of months ago. He took the bait. Governor Romney's going to have to make sure he doesn't take the bait. And I think a lot of Americans are going to focus on this and say, as this European crisis is out there, something that they don't really understand, as it starts impacting us here on the homeland, what is President Obama going to do to spin it, to bring it to his advantage? And what is Governor Romney going to do to keep people focused on the economy moving forward?
Well, really quickly, a couple things. One is that I think Rick Perry was Rick Perry's biggest problem. But that aside, no, I'm going to push back on this idea that President Obama had some sort of horrible week. The job numbers weren't great, but how many jobs was he losing when he put his hand in that Bible?
And overall, the net increase was 69,000.
Straight months of positive job growth. And when you talk about Europe, look at what's in fact happening in Europe. 11, 12% unemployment. You got voters in the capitals of Europe taking to the streets protesting. And by the way, a lot of those austerity measures that Boehner and would have you put in place here in this country, Clinton hit it right on the nose. If we want what Europe's got, just double down on what Republicans are talking about. If you think, and by the way, if we had 11% unemployment here in this country like we had in Europe, we would have a revolution, and the black unemployment would be 30%.
But it's not just the issue of unemployment in Europe. That's only part of the issue. The other part of the issue in Europe is the constant reliance on the state as the be-all and end-all. So it's a combination of that.
Yeah, but Chris, here's the deal. Okay, that's Europe's problem.
Right.
Our problem with what's happening in Europe, if you have a slowdown of buying of goods, that impacts what happens in this country.
Absolutely.
And that is going to have a negative impact on our economy.
Right.
Congresswoman, we're seeing a slowdown in China as well. Right. If you all of a sudden have India, China, Europe slowing down, we're going to see our economy have a difficult time.
Right, and one thing that we have to always talk about is what is the role of Congress? This Republican-led Congress and what they are proposing, there's a lot of things that we could have done to bring about jobs. But number one, we are rarely in session. Number two, there are...
When do y'all work? Everybody else working. I mean, is Congress unemployed?
Well, the ideological battle that's going on in Congress is what is the role of government? If you don't believe the government plays a significant role, why do you need to be in session in Congress?
Hold that thought. I want to come back because I want to know, this is what Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party should be together. Get the hell back to work. We'll continue the conversation after the break and find out who told the biggest damn lie this week. And later, Raheem Devon. So stay with us.
Washington Watch with Roland Martin is powered by HP.
All right, folks, welcome back to our panel. And I want to pick up on that. Seriously, where in the world is Congress? You would think that when you have a difficult time, the president comes out, says, look, pass my construction jobs bill. Congress is kicking back, chilling at the crib.
Well, you know, the Democratic leaders, both at the beginning of this week, called on the Republican leadership to cancel our recess. We're going on recess for the next 12 days. The Republican leadership has not responded.
How many days y'all work this month? I mean, in the month of May?
In the month of May, we were in session 9 days.
9 days?
Yes, yes, yes. But look at it from the Republicans' point of view.
That sounds like Cornell work schedule.
She got better health care.
Wait, I don't know about that. But think about it from their point of view. 87 new Republicans were elected in January of last year. They want those folks to continue to be reelected, so they want them to go home and campaign.
No,
that's the reason.
I think the Democrats should, y'all should occupy Congress.
Oh, there you go. I think that's a great idea.
Y'all should just come to Congress. All right, we're here. Where y'all at?
Now you know that was tried in December on the extension of unemployment, and they wouldn't turn the microphones on.
No,
so
you don't need the microphone. Look, y'all need to go old school black activists. Get a bullhorn.
Oh, okay.
See, y'all forgot y'all roots. Get the Congress on. We ain't getting the bullhorn. Not getting the bullhorn. All right, okay, understand. Don't sweat. One of the other things that has jumped out this week is this whole issue of the Supreme Court and health care. Right. And here's what's interesting. The CNN poll said that most people want health care repeal, but the interesting part is a significant number of people want the health care law repealed because they felt it didn't go far enough. It's amazing how that never really gets told.
Well, it's problematic, and quite frankly, Democrats should take some heat on this because, quite frankly, we did not do a very good job of messaging around this.
No, really? Really? Shocker.
And the Congresswoman, they worked very hard to sort of move this historic measure, but it's lost. And when you talk to voters, and particularly in African Americans, no voter is more anxious about health care than African Americans, and they're still anxious about it. They have no idea what this health care law is done. They're hopeful, but they have no clue about what this health care law does.
And you know, it was actually before my time. I was sitting in California watching this, but if you think about some of the provisions such as pre-existing conditions, I mean, those provisions save people's lives. The fact that today a 26-year-old can continue on their parents' plan, you know, this is things that absolutely save people's lives. I don't think that the Democrats did a great job in marketing.
And they still aren't doing a great job communicating. I mean, my goodness.
Those are great things, but two things came out of it. Number one, tone and messaging. The Democrats made it seem as though it was going to be a rushed process, and people felt uncomfortable with that, first and foremost.
The rushed process that took a whole year.
Well, look at how they had to win over the blue dogs, and they had to do this, and there was special type of votes in Congress, and that was something that the average American, whether they were conservative or progressive, felt a little uneasy about. The other thing about this is the focus has not been on those 26-year-olds. It's not been on pre-existing conditions. Those are things that people.
30 million people that
it's been on
covered.
the individual mandate, and when you don't message properly,
loved in Massachusetts.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
Yes, but the Tea Party never did, and so that's the group that. If we look at how politics have played out 2009, 2010, those are the folks that dominated that cycle, and therefore they dominated the message, and that's where you got to where we are right now.
I gotta ask the question. We saw all of these stories, and people were talking about how the president's such a great communicator. How in the world, Chris, have the Democrats consistently fumbled messaging? I mean, they have gotten beat to the punch on nearly every issue, and I'm sitting here going, can y'all find somebody who knows how to communicate?
Well, a couple of things. One, they always want to...
You know I'm not lying, Cornell. It's been pretty bad.
That's not fair.
The messaging has been weak.
One,
they
always want to have the president out front as if he is the only person in the White House who can say anything. So that's number one. Number two, in terms of conservatives and in terms of Republicans, look, you can agree or disagree with us, but we're very clear that we have an ideology. We're going to make that ideology clear. We're going to stick to that, and we're not going to get caught up in all of these other distractions. And for me, that's the issue with the Democrats.
It's pretty easy when your ideology is no.
No
to raising taxes, no to government.
That's not the ideology, but at least it's an ideology. Regardless of whether you agree with it or not, it is clear, and we are going to consistently stick to that message. With the Democrats, and particularly as it related to that whole healthcare thing, I was like, what are y'all talking about? Absolutely nothing.
You do stick to messaging, and here's part of the problem, and it's really interesting. The guy who I think you should have nominated this year, who probably couldn't have been it, Jeb Bush, was out sort of talking about about your messaging today. Talk about sort of a surrogate being off message. And what Jeb Bush was basically saying is that the extremism of the Republican Party is being short-sighted, and he sees it in their policies and the whole conversation that's going on in the Republican Party. And this is this is Jeb Bush of Florida talking about the extremism of what he sees in the Republican Party right now being short-sighted.
That's not off message. That's prophecy. The Republicans can't win. They can't win in 10 years if we continue to do what we do.
There you go.
So that's what that boiled down to. He's trying to get some
That's prophecy.
Absolutely right.
So I guess Lenny's new name is Negro Domus. All right, folks. Hold tight 1 second. It's now time for... Ever since President Barack Obama moved into the Oval Office, Republicans have been making a big deal about the size and growth of the national debt. Of course, Republicans were not worried about the debt when, during the administration of their hero, President Ronald Reagan, the debt increased by 54%. Nor were they worried when, under President George W. Bush, the debt increased by 38%. And let's not forget that Bush's Vice President Dick Cheney famously said, quote, "Reagan proved deficits don't matter." But when the debt goes up when President Barack Obama is in the White House, Karl Rove just can't stand it. So his super PAC, Crossroads GPS, put out this ad.
Why isn't the economy stronger? In the seconds it takes to watch this, our national debt will increase 1.4 million. In 2008, Barack Obama said,
"We can't mortgage our children's future on a mountain of debt."
Now he's adding 4 billion in debt every day, borrowing from China for his spending. Every second, growing our debt faster than our economy. Tell Obama, stop the spending. Support the New Majority Agenda at newmajorityagenda.org.
No doubt it's a smart ad because most Americans worry about the size of the debt. Now the numbers in the ad are pretty accurate, but blaming it all on President Obama is where the distortions or the half-truths come in. Okay, my producers wrote that. We call them lies. Here is what Ad Watch in the Washington Post had to say about the ad. Quote, "To call federal expenditures his spending, as the ad does, ignores that the Republican-run House signed off on today's spending levels." And the Washington Post fact checker said this ad exaggerates Obama's impact on the rise of the debt, as it was not just spending, but a decline in revenue that is responsible for the sharp rise in federal budget deficits. Also, what's important is that the Bush tax cuts, according to the CBO, contributed to our rising debt, and Republicans say keep those in line. Now, according to the previous item, Washington Post, they awarded the ad 2 out of 4 Pinocchios. So, Karl Rove, as expected, no shock, you brought this week's... That gets me in D.C. They call things taken out of context, mischaracterization, half-truths. I grew up, my daddy said that's a damn lie.
You know, Roland, I sit on the Budget Committee, Paul Ryan's committee, and one thing that is just not true of my Republican colleagues is that they want to cut government spending. It's just not true. They just want to cut government spending in certain areas. And so they proposed actually to increase spending in the defense, on the defense side, but they want to cut food stamps. They want to cut WIC. They want to cut programs that would help you know, the most vulnerable in our society, and they don't want to take responsibility for their own spending like the Bush tax cuts.
I got to go to a break, but I do, it cracks me up when I see people want to take photos with policemen and firefighters, but then they love those local job cuts, and they say it's big government, and then complain about those when the unemployment number goes down and say, well, that's how they got it cut as well. So I say if you want to cut teachers and police officers and firefighters, stop taking those pictures and calling yourself patriots. All right, we got to go. Congresswoman, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch, Chris. Cornell, The Undertaker, thanks a bunch. Lenny, good job. We didn't haze you too much your first time on the show. Next time, wear a pocket square. All right, folks, back in a moment with What's the Ask after this.